What would you do if your own mother tried to destroy the happiest day of your life? I was about to get engaged, surrounded by love, family, and celebration, when my mother grabbed a mic stand and hit me with it. Everyone froze. But what happened next? My fiancé stepped up and did something so unexpected. It changed everything. This is the story of betrayal, pain, and a shocking act of love that no one, not even my mother, saw coming. Growing up, I always thought my mother loved me, strictly, but with purpose. Veronica wasn't warm, but she was present. She raised me alone after my dad left, and she made sure I lacked nothing, materially. But emotionally? She never once told me she was proud of me. Never hugged me without a reason. Her love came with conditions, expectations I was supposed to fulfill to earn her approval. I worked hard to be the perfect daughter. Top of my class, polite, accomplished. But when it came to love, when I introduced Daniel, her disappointment was instant. Daniel was nothing like the polished, upper-class men she had in mind for me. He was kind, humble, and a school teacher. In her eyes, that meant he had no ambition. She didn't see his soul, his honesty, or how he made me feel safe in a world that always demanded more from me. Still, I hoped that with time, she would come around. After all, I wasn't a teenager, I was 28. Old enough to make my own choices. When Daniel proposed, I said yes without hesitation. We planned a beautiful engagement party in a garden estate. Nothing extravagant, but meaningful. We invited friends, family, and yes, my mother. I wanted her to see how happy I was. I still held on to the fantasy that deep down, she wanted that for me too. The day of the engagement arrived like a dream. Soft golden lights were strung through the trees, guests filled the space with laughter, and a jazz trio played in the background. Daniel looked nervous but glowing in his navy blue suit. I wore a cream lace gown with delicate embroidery, a blend of elegance and simplicity. Everything felt perfect. Until she arrived. Veronica walked in like a storm cloud at a picnic. Dressed in a sharp red suit, face emotionless, eyes already scanning the room like she was looking for flaws. She greeted me with a stiff kiss on the cheek and ignored Daniel altogether. My heart sank, but I tried to push through. I smiled, introduced her to guests, and focused on enjoying the moment. But she didn't stop with silence, she started quietly spreading poison. Throughout the evening, I overheard her making comments. She could have done so much better. A teacher? Really? This doesn't feel like an engagement. More like a high school reunion. She moved from guest to guest, masking her disapproval with fake smiles. Daniel noticed, but he never said a word. He just squeezed my hand and said, "Ignore her. This is our day." When the time came for speeches, Daniel stood up and thanked everyone for being part of our journey. His voice trembled as he spoke about our first date, how he knew I was the one after our second coffee, and how he promised to always protect me. The room was silent, attentive, and moved. Even some of the toughest guests wiped their eyes. It was a beautiful, raw moment. After his speech, I took the microphone. I thanked our friends, our family, and then, despite everything, I turned toward my mother. I said, "And thank you, Mom, for raising me, for being strong, and for giving me the courage to be my own woman. I hope today makes you proud." The room applauded. I smiled, naively thinking that maybe, just maybe, I had broken through to her heart. But I was wrong. So terribly wrong. Veronica didn't smile. She didn't even blink. She just stood up slowly, cold and rigid, and looked at me like I had just committed the ultimate betrayal. The applause around us faded into silence as she took a step forward. There was something in her eyes I had never seen before. Not just disappointment, but rage. Deep, burning, uncontrolled rage. "You think this makes me proud?" she said, her voice slicing through the quiet like a knife. "You think standing here, lowering yourself for a man who can't even buy his own home, is something to be proud of?" Gasps filled the air. Guests exchanged awkward glances. I stood frozen, gripping the mic, heart pounding, trying to find the right words. But nothing came out. Daniel rose slowly from his seat, calm but alert. I could see the concern in his eyes. He was watching her carefully, not because he was afraid, but because he was ready. Still, I never imagined what would happen next. Before anyone could stop her, my mother stepped toward the DJ booth, grabbed the metal mic stand that stood next to the speakers, and swung it. It all happened so fast. The crowd screamed. I didn't even have. Daniel rose slowly from his seat, calm but alert. I could see the concern in his eyes. He was watching her carefully, not because he was afraid, but because he was ready. Still, I never imagined what would happen next. Before anyone could stop her, my mother stepped toward the DJ booth, grabbed the metal mic stand that stood next to the speakers, and swung it. It all happened so fast. The crowd screamed. I didn't even have time to move. The heavy stand slammed against my right shoulder and clipped the side of my head. Pain exploded through my body. I stumbled back, dropping the microphone, and collapsed to the ground. People rushed forward, some to help me, others to hold her back. My mother didn't flinch. She just stood there, chest heaving, eyes wild, as if she had done something righteous. I heard voices, blurry, echoing. Someone yelling for help. A woman shouting, "Call an ambulance." And through it all, Daniel's voice. Steady, firm, filled with a kind of quiet fury. "Don't touch her," he said to someone trying to move me. "Let me." I felt his arms wrap around me, lifting me gently. His hands brushed the blood from my face, and I saw his jaw tighten, not with panic, but with protection. "Stay with me, baby," he whispered. "Just keep looking at me." And I did. I looked into his eyes, even as the pain throbbed and the embarrassment burned through me. I couldn't cry. Not yet. The tears wouldn't come until later, when the shock wore off. In that moment, all I felt was disbelief. How did we get here? Security arrived minutes later. A friend of Daniel's who worked with law enforcement was already separating guests and clearing space. My mother? She tried to justify it. "I raised her alone," she screamed. "I gave her everything. And she throws it all away for this. This man?" Her voice cracked with bitterness. But no one was listening to her anymore. The room had shifted. All eyes were now on her, with shame. An ambulance arrived, but I refused to leave without Daniel. He sat with me in the back, holding my hand as the EMTs cleaned the wound and checked my vitals. "You might have a minor concussion," one of them said. "You should rest. No stress." I laughed bitterly. "A little late for that, don't you think?" Daniel just kissed my forehead and said, "You're going to be okay. I promise." At the hospital, while we waited for the scans, Daniel turned to me and said, "I know this is a terrible night. But I still mean everything I said. I want to spend my life with you. And I will protect you, from anyone, even your mother, if I have to." That was when I broke down. I sobbed in his arms. Not from the pain, but from the realization that someone finally chose me. Without conditions. Without control. The doctors cleared me later that night with instructions to rest, and Daniel insisted on taking me home with him. I couldn't go back to the house I shared with my mother. Not after what she'd done. I packed a small bag, quietly, with his help. There was no argument. No hesitation. Just a quiet exit from a chapter one never imagined would end that way. In the days that followed, the story spread. People called, messaged, even posted online about what happened. Some supported me. Others were shocked. But one thing was clear, my mother had crossed a line, and everyone knew it. She tried to call over and over. Left voicemails. Some angry, others weeping. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Not yet. Daniel, meanwhile, became my anchor. He made me tea, stayed up at night when I had nightmares, and even gently washed my hair because I couldn't lift my arm without pain. "You don't have to do this," I told him one night. He smiled and said, "I know. But I want to. Because that's what love does, it stays when things get ugly." Weeks passed, and while my shoulder slowly healed, the emotional wound stayed raw. I kept replaying that moment, the coldness in my mother's eyes, the weight of the mic stand, the gasps from people I loved. Every time I closed my eyes, I could feel the metal against my skin, hear the silence that followed the impact. But through it all, Daniel never left my side. He didn't just comfort me, he stood up for me. He called off the rest of the engagement party and personally reached out to every guest, explaining that we would not tolerate violence or disrespect, no matter who it came from. Some people were surprised at how firmly he spoke. But I wasn't. I had always known Daniel was strong, it just too. He didn't just comfort me, he stood up for me. He called off the rest of the engagement party and personally reached out to every guest, explaining that we would not tolerate violence or disrespect, no matter who it came from. Some people were surprised at how firmly he spoke. But I wasn't. I had always known Daniel was strong, it just took this nightmare for the world to see it too. About a month later, while sitting on the couch in our apartment, Daniel turned to me with that same calm, steady expression he always wore when something serious was on his mind. "Let's still get married," he said. "Let's not let her steal this from us." At first, I hesitated. I didn't want our wedding to be tainted by drama or fear. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized he was right. This wasn't just about us anymore. It was about reclaiming our joy. About showing that love could grow even after being bruised. So we planned a small, intimate ceremony. No big crowds. Just our closest friends, my aunt, the only family member who supported us, and a few of Daniel's family members. We picked a lakeside chapel about an hour outside the city, peaceful, surrounded by trees, a place untouched by past memories. The day of the wedding arrived with quiet sunshine and a soft breeze. I wore a long ivory gown with lace sleeves, simple yet graceful. Daniel wore a gray suit and a tie I picked for him the night before. As I walked down the aisle, holding my aunt's hand in place of my mother's, I looked at Daniel and saw everything I needed: love, patience, strength. Just before the ceremony began, one of Daniel's cousins walked in, looking alarmed. He whispered something in Daniel's ear, and for a moment, Daniel's face changed, his jaw clenched. He looked at me, then back at the door. I could tell something was wrong. Then I saw her. My mother. Standing in the back of the chapel. Dressed in black, as if attending a funeral. Her face was unreadable. Part guilt, part defiance. She took one step forward, and instantly, a murmur ran through the small gathering. I froze. Everything inside me screamed to run, to end this, to protect the peace we had finally found. But Daniel, he raised his hand gently, signaling everyone to be still. Then he walked over to her. For a moment, I couldn't hear what they were saying. But I could see Daniel's body language, firm, composed. He wasn't angry. He wasn't scared. He was in control. Eventually, I heard his voice clearly. "This is our wedding. You are not welcome unless you're here with love in your heart. You've hurt her enough. So if you're here to make peace, sit down. If not, please leave. I won't let you ruin this day." The entire room was silent. Veronica looked around. For the first time in my life, she looked unsure. Exposed. Alone. And then, something none of us expected happened. She sat down. Quietly in the last row. No outburst. No dramatic words. Just silence. I looked at Daniel, and he looked back at me as if to say, "It's okay. I've got you." The ceremony continued. When the priest asked Daniel to say his vows, he didn't reach for a card. He spoke from the heart. "I promise to never raise my voice at you, only raise your spirit. I promise to fight with you, not against you. And I promise that no matter who tries to tear us down, I will always choose you." There wasn't a dry eye in that room. Especially not mine. After the ceremony, the reception was held in a quiet lakeside cabin nearby. We had a small dinner, music, and lots of laughter. It felt like everything I had dreamed of, simple, warm, and safe. For a while, I forgot my mother was even there. She stayed in the back, eating silently, speaking to no one. And honestly, I was fine with that. But about halfway through the evening, just after we cut the cake, my aunt walked over and whispered, "She wants to talk to you." My heart skipped. I didn't know if I was ready. What could she possibly say after everything she'd done? Daniel looked at me and gently said, "Do you want me to come with you?" I nodded. I wasn't afraid of her. Not anymore. But I wanted him there, not as a shield, but as a reminder that I wasn't alone. We stepped outside to a quiet corner near the lake, where she was standing alone, arms folded, eyes red but dry. "I didn't come here to ruin things," she said before I could speak. "I came because I couldn't stay away. And because I saw the photos online. The two of you, you looked happy. You looked safe. And that scared me." Her words stunned me. "Scared you?" I said, my voice barely steady. "You hit me with a mic stand. In front of everyone. You humiliated me. You almost destroyed one of the most important days of my life. And you're telling me you were scared?" She didn't defend herself this time. I was scared of being alone. Of losing control. Of not mattering anymore. When you said you were marrying him, I felt like you were choosing him over me. There it was. The truth. Bitter and raw. Daniel stood quietly beside me, hand in mine. I didn't speak right away. I needed to choose my words carefully. "You mattered to me every day of my life. Even when you didn't show love the way I needed, I still tried. I tried so hard to earn your approval, Mum. But this," I gestured at the scar near my temple, still faintly healing. "This isn't love. This is fear. Control. And it ends today." She lowered her head, silent. "I'm not asking you to approve of my marriage," I continued. "But I am asking you to understand that if you want to be part of my life, it comes with respect. For me. For him. For what we're building." Daniel nodded quietly. "And forgiveness isn't owed. It's earned." Over time. Veronica blinked, and I saw something I'd never seen in her before: humility. I understand, she said. And I'm sorry. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't filled with tears. But it was real. We didn't hug. Not that day. But something shifted in the air. A weight lifted. A door opened, barely, but enough. 6 months later, Daniel and I moved to a quiet home just outside the city. I started my own small business, and he continued teaching. We built a peaceful life, one filled with Sunday walks, game nights, and the kind of love that's slow, patient, and real. My mother? She started therapy. She didn't call often, but when she did, she spoke differently. Softer. Calmer. She apologized again, several times. And slowly, I allowed small conversations to grow. I set boundaries. Some days were better than others. But the power she once held over me? Gone. And as for Daniel, he never stopped being the man who stood up for me. Who held me on the darkest night of my life and helped me rise from it. So yes, my mom hit me with a mic stand to ruin my engagement. But my fiancé? He shocked everyone by doing the one thing no one expected. He loved me harder. He stayed. He protected me. And he reminded me that no matter what your past looks like, your future is still yours to choose. Thank you for staying with me through this unforgettable journey. If this story touched your heart, made you angry, or gave you hope, then you need to hear what happened in the story where my best friend kissed my fiancé when I left the room for just 5 minutes. Trust me, it's even more shocking than this one. Click right here on the screen, or check the next video on my channel. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you believe real stories deserve to be heard.